Last week, I made a video going over all the changes I would make to water in 7 Days to Die, and it was mostly positive feedback, but I did see some very good criticism about the ideas for the water changes, and a big thing there was people saying basically that making water harm you directly was too punishing or too annoying. So I listened to that and I got rid of the radiated water idea entirely, instead going for different tiers of water that are available to you. And I think the best way to show you everything I've made in this mod in just 7 days is to just jump in and literally show you, because it's the easiest way to make sure you're not overwhelmed with information. So let's hop over. Alright, so we're going to take a quick look at all the things I've added into this mod so far in my development process. It's only been about a week since I started, so it does definitely need additional balancing. One thing people should avoid doing when they first play this mod is like going into the search bar and searching for water, because you will be absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of ways you can make water in this now. But it's actually really not that complicated. I've just given a lot of different ways to do the same thing, so that there's lots of different play styles that can still use water, and sort of different scenarios that a player might be in where they will be able to purify water. Of course, the first thing I have done is re-add empty jars, which work pretty much like they used to. You'll notice immediately that we only have half a stack compared to usual, and I've done that because water is a very voluminous and heavy thing to carry around. So I wanted to reflect that in having smaller stacks for all the drinks in the game, but there is something I have added later to the game that will alleviate that considerably. So we have our murky water. How do we turn it into drinkable water? Well, the first step in water purification in this mod would be disinfection, which might sound scary, but it's actually pretty simple. There are 3 ways to disinfect water. The first one, and most obvious, is you go to a campfire with a cooking pot and you just craft some disinfected water. Really quickly, I'm just going to use a Forget an Elixir because you're seeing the times with MasterChef, and we don't want to show that because that would mislead people. So you can see it takes a minute by default. So yeah, you can use a cooking pot and water to make disinfected water. Now, disinfected water is like murky water, but without any of the negative effects. So you'll see that it only gives you 10 water compared to what boiled water used to give you. This was my alternative to making water harm you, which I came up with in the last video I made on this. People mentioned that it was a little bit too annoying and a little bit too punishing, so I went for a less negative effect, which is when you just disinfect your water, you get less hydration from it. Another method you have of disinfecting your water is, of course, using a chemistry station to distill it, which is faster and also as free as the cooking pot, so to speak. Now, some might point out that distilled water should realistically be completely safe to drink. It should be like some of the best water possible. That is true, but there are some things that you can't distill from water, particularly things that might boil and turn into their version of steam before water. I think oils, for example, would fall under that category. So for the sake of gameplay, I've just made the chemistry station a very fast version of the cooking pot water. Now, there's a third way to disinfect your water, and this feature is intended for people who are having bad luck finding the cooking pot, or can't get a beaker for their chemistry station, or if you're far away from your base and you just don't have anywhere to do either of these things. You now have a method of disinfection in your inventory that is reliant on you finding other things in loot that are much more common than cooking pots or beakers, but they are single use, and that is chemical disinfectant. We go in here and type in disinfected water. You'll see that there's one that doesn't have an icon, and that means you can craft in your inventory. It is the slowest, technically the least efficient, because it takes a long time for chemical disinfectant to work on water, and of course the downsides have to be that it takes a while in order to still encourage you to use cooking pots and chemistry stations. So we could craft that and it consumes a chemical disinfectant and we would get disinfected water. That's really as complicated as disinfected water actually gets, and I'm introducing it this way because if you just moved into the mod completely on your own, you might be a little bit confused about the number of ways it appears that you can disinfect things and filter things, but it really is just those 3 major things. It is simply one step that you have 3 separate choices. The next step to make water into what would have been boiled water, and this is the water you need to use to be able to craft food, by the way, so you will have to do it, is filtered water. And there are 3 ways to filter or clean water, and the first one is the basic cheap version you have access to in your inventory, which is crafting a makeshift water filter. This will be consumed after one use of turning this into clean water. It's not very efficient at all, and you will want to go for one of the other versions eventually, but if you're away from your base and you just have nothing else, or it's before you've unlocked one of the other options, you can craft a makeshift water filter for 1 cloth, 5 crushed sand, 5 coal, 5 stone, and 5 scrap polymers. I'm not particularly attached to the crafting components of this. This is just what I've gone for in the meantime. And yes, the icon for this is a purified water bottle turned upside down with some sand and shit on the inside and some cloth. I'm very proud of my Photoshop work there. So you would craft that, and then you would be able to clean your water in your inventory. Again, takes a while because this is the cheapest and most accessible path that you can do in your inventory, and you would get clean water. Clean water is essentially just what boiled water used to be, so it's more efficient for hydration, it gives you a stamina boost, and you can use it to craft all these various foods and medicines. Now obviously, on a large scale, crafting a lot of makeshift water filters to do this would be a massive pain in the ass, and I'm also very aware of the possibility of this making glue really unbearable to craft early on, so I'm considering changing glue to just take murky water again, or maybe just disinfected water. That would be a very easy change. I've just not implemented that, but you do have other options to filter your water. Later on in the game, you will come across an advanced portable water filter, and these can be found in survival loot. They are non-craftable, but they can be found at the trader, in survival loot, and in military related loot. And you'll go into your recipes here and you'll see two. This is the main one. You'll notice that it's a package instead of a regular item. This is my workaround for the fact that I don't know if there's a way to not consume a crafting item when you craft. So what you do is you take your disinfected water and your portable water filter and you craft it into clean water. When that finishes, you can open the clean water package. You'll get your clean water and a new portable water filter, but you can pretend it's the original one. It's a weird workaround, but it's the quickest and easiest way I found to implement a feature like this. And this is essentially an infinite use version of the makeshift water filter. But you have to loot it rather than make it. Another option you have is a dedicated water filtration station. You can see these are the items you would need to craft it. You would need to find a schematic, which spawns about as commonly as things like the retracting stock mod in all the similar places. So book related loot is also very common to find in poppin' pills crates, and that is because I didn't want this to be some endgame workstation. It's just a stopgap one that allows you to filter drinks for free very efficiently and easily. And you will of course note that it is a water cooler. The reason I haven't made any 3D models for any of the workstations yet is A, I have forgotten how to make 3D models. I haven't done it since COVID, and I'll need to refamiliarize myself with the process, and I will need to learn how to import those into 7 Days to Die. Not too difficult as far as I'm aware though, but I didn't want to make features that people might not like and have spent like 30 hours making a 3D model for them, so I'm using placeholders for the time being, and this is a water filtration station. You can get it sort of workbench level. It's not very difficult to obtain or craft, and in here you can clean your water for absolutely free, relatively efficiently, and that's it. So those are your three options for filtering your water. Ideally, you want to get away from makeshift water filters as soon as possible because they are not very efficient at all. Once you have your clean water though, this is just the exact same as boiled water, and it's used in all the things that it used to be. Again, I'm really considering changing glue to just be disinfected water, so you only need to use the chemistry station or the cooking pot, but that is a very easy change, so I wouldn't worry about that. Now, you do have another step that is available to you, and it isn't actually a new one necessarily. I've just added a lot more ways to obtain it, and that is water purification. If you've played the base game of 7 Days to Die, you are likely familiar with purified mineral water. I have buffed it in this mod. Now, it has 80 water, which is very, very efficient indeed. And you can still craft it the old-fashioned way with coal, goldenrod, and chrysanthemum. Again, I'm considering making that harder to make because it is a very powerful item now. But you will see there's a bunch of other options we have available to us here, and that is with the water purification station. And the water purification station is, of course, an industrial washing machine. Again, I've explained why I haven't made 3D models for these. You get it. It works just enough. So, in here, we can turn murky water, clean water, or disinfected water straight into purified mineral water. It does require fuel. I would like to make this a powered block in future, but I did not see an obvious way to do that when I was modding this in. So it's kind of just a to-do right now, but it does require fuel, so it works kind of like a chemistry station, and it does generate heat. So it is much like the other endgame workstations in that regard. And you can filter any water straight into purified mineral water very quickly, which is very, very powerful. I'm sure you'll agree. I'm also considering adding the ability to craft straight to clean water in here for people who may want to just have a quick way of getting clean water so they can craft food, and it would make sense that this is able to do that as well. Now, getting the purifier is quite difficult, or rather not difficult, but it's an end game thing. You will need to find a schematic which spawns primarily in end loots for tier 3s, 4s and 5 POIs once you are into loot stage tier 3. So this is kind of like auto shotgun level item right here in terms of finding just the schematic for it. Then you will need to find 100 forged steel, 30 mechanical parts, 30 electrical parts, and 5 water purifier components and 1 advanced water purification component, who you may recognize as just the dew filter's water filter with a new name. I am going to make some big changes to the dew collector in this mod at some point, but in the meantime, this is just a component you can also add to the dew collector to make it produce you clean water. It is found in exactly the same way as the base game water filter, except it's now also added to tier 3, 4 and 5 end loots once you're up to a good loot stage. And water purifier components, if you remember the original video, I said I wanted to put these in a guaranteed location. I have not done that because that would expand the scope of the mod quite considerably. I would have to get into POI design, and that would also reduce the compatibility of the mod right now. And while this is not a full overhaul mod, I would like it to be as compatible with other mods as possible. So I have simply just made it a rare late loot stage item. Again, tier 3, so auto shotgun levels. The higher level your loot stage is, the more likely you are to get water purifier components. They only spawn in tier 3, 4 and 5 end loots once you are into loot stage cap 3, and even then they have a low loot stage thing. This will be something you will very much work towards in the end game, and that makes sense because it gives you purified mineral water essentially for free. But that was part of the intention of the mod, is I wanted to give players absolute water security just late game so they have something to work towards. So that's the main ways you can get from empty glass jars all the way up to purified mineral water. But you may have noticed another feature throughout this video that I have not particularly hidden, and that is a new water container entirely. Here we have a canteen, and again, I have not made a 3D model for this because we don't know if people like the mod, so that would be an inefficient use of resources. As it says, this can hold twice as much of most liquids, allowing you to carry twice as much water per stack and restore more hydration per drink, and it also extends the length of any buffs by 2 times. So the canteen works just like a jar. You fill it up at water and you get a canteen of murky water, and it's twice as hydrating but also twice as damaging and twice as likely to make you sick. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the murky water has been made much more lethal. You now take 20 damage, and that also does apply to sipping it with your hand. Really wouldn't recommend you do that at all, just to encourage people to actually care about drinking purified water. Also, the water purifier helmet mod is such a detriment to water mechanics in this game, I have simply removed it. And I want to avoid simply removing as many things as possible, because one, it's extremely annoying to remove items from 7 Days to Die because of the way that things tend to be referenced all over the place in the files, so you have to make 10 files just to remove one item. But it also kind of just made all of this completely redundant, and that's one of the biggest complaints I saw on my video about water, was people saying the water purifier helmet mod just makes water completely pointless anyway. You just take a bucket of water and then you drink from it at your base, and I completely agree, so I have removed it. But its functionality, i.e. being able to get clean water on the move, has been replaced with chemical disinfectant, makeshift and advanced water filters that you can keep in your inventory, so it's now harder to get water on the move without a dedicated workstation, but it is still possible. I would argue it's just more engaging and potentially more difficult. So we have our canteen of murky water, and everything I've said so far in this video about, you know, using the campfire to disinfect and distill there or filter at this, all of that can be done with the canteen. I've added all the necessary requirements for that. You can see them all here. Now, I was very conscious of 2 things. One, people in multiplayer may find it annoying that you can't share such a large water container with a friend. So you can, if you have the jars for it, come into here and search for fill jar, and you can convert your canteen of murky water back into 2 jars of murky water. So if we let that craft, this can be done with every single drink I have added to the canteens. Some drinks I didn't add to the canteen, in particular drinks that already are very much based around their buff rather than hydration. So beer isn't in the canteens, learning elixirs aren't in the canteens, because I didn't want to make already powerful items like that twice as powerful because of a single item I added to the game. So if we open this now, we have turned our canteen of murky water into a canteen and 2 murky waters, and therefore you can split that other murky water with your friend. Or if you want to craft with disinfected water, you will be able to convert it back into jars of water very, very easily, and then use that to craft food items. You may be wondering, why did I not simply add recipes so that empty canteens of water can be used to make twice as much food? And that is because there is a lot of food recipes in 7 Days to Die. If I was to make a canteen version for every single one of these items that consumes water, there would be a duplicate of every single one of these basically that would do nothing but really clutter the screen. So I chose to hide the feature behind filling jars with the contents of canteens. But you can, of course, do the opposite. If you have 2 jars of pure water and you would like to make a canteen of pure water, you can simply fill the canteen and get your jars back. Now, I did mention that essentially canteens work as giving you twice as much of everything for 1 drink, which does essentially mean that canteens will hold the same amount of water per stack as the vanilla game jars do, because it holds twice as much, but it's half the stack size. So you should still be able to hold the exact same amount of water or the exact amount of everything else that you get on the same stack. It is now just a late game feature that you have to find these canteens for. They're quite expensive, but they do rarely spawn at the trader. The best place to find them is going to be end loot in tier 3 and 4 POIs, military, footlockers, and survival related loot. Survival related loot has actually had a lot of stuff injected into it from this mod, because it just makes sense. So canteens and water fillers and stuff will spawn there, making it a bit more useful, and that's where you're going to primarily find these. These are not locked behind loot stage at all. They are just quite rare in loot, and you have to find them in a few very particular locations. And they're not craftable. And you will have noticed that this is an incredibly powerful drink item. A canteen of pure water will give you 160 water, but it does still cost 2 purified mineral water or 2 of each of the purifier items to make, and it takes twice as long. So it really is just a case of, this is essentially 2 stacks of purified mineral water on 1 tile. Now, you may note, particularly with the canteen of pure water, you're probably never going to make full use of 160 water in one go. This is just for the sake of completeness. Where this is going to be much more useful to you, I think, is on the other drinks. For example, goldenrod tea now gives you 50 and a massive dysentery cure. You can get yourself 12 minutes of efficient digestion and 50 water from red tea. Coffee will last longer, give you more water. It's more practical for the weaker drinks, but if you are literally on the verge of dehydration, an entire canteen of purified mineral water probably would solve your problem. So this is available to you, and once you have so much water, because you have access to as many jars as you need and you have access to a water purifier, it won't matter to you really that this is such an overkill item, because you will just have such easy access to water at that point that this might as well just be infinite water. It's the same either way. It makes water a non-issue, which was a goal I had to have for the end game, was to make water completely irrelevant once you're so completely able to survive. It does take a while to get to the stage, and people might be concerned about the cost. I am thinking of reducing the amount of money you make for purified mineral water, since it's a little bit easier to get endgame now, but I'm not concerned about the cost of canteens at all, because canteens are something that you can only loot. So the fact that you can get like 250 dukes per canteen is kind of irrelevant, because you're going to want to hoard them probably so that you can have, you know, a stack of pure water, a stack of yucca juice, a stack of goldenrod, a stack of red tea, a stack of coffee, stuff like that. And of course, a stack of blackstrap coffee is available as well. So yeah, the canteen system is my solution to giving you back the ability to have the exact same amount of water. It just, now it's an engaging mechanic that you'll go out and look for, and you'll have an item that you will actually somewhat covet in the end game. There are a few more features I have added or re-added that I think we should talk about as well. First of all, chemical disinfectant only stacks to 10, so you can craft 100 of them into a bottle of disinfectant. which I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the code in front of me, I think these also stack to 10, so you can stack a lot of chemical disinfectant on this one tile very, very easily. And the reason I've done that is because right now there's no end game use for chemical disinfectant. I will probably, at some point, if I expand this mod to be outside of the realms of just water, make this a more important end game item, so you wouldn't need to have the ability to store loads of it, but I have considered it. Another thing is I have added the ability to craft murky water out of snowballs once again. It is more expensive than it used to be because I do think it was really, really easy, but it's still pretty easy. 10 snowball in 1 jar for 1 murky water. I don't know why it takes 1 minute and 35 seconds. That's obviously just an oversight for me. I'll probably make it like a minute. And especially since the canteen of murky water seems to take 21 seconds. Additionally, I have added the ability to craft yucca juice out of just yuccas and jars again. That's something the game used to have that they removed and made it take yucca and clean water. I have kept that, and it is now cheaper in terms of yucca fruit if you use clean water. If you're out in the desert and you have an empty canteen, if you can get yourself 8 yucca fruit, you can craft a canteen of yucca juice. And same goes with a jar. It's much cheaper. I think it only costs 1, or am I looking at the wrong one? No, it costs 4, that makes sense, yeah. And all of these have been integrated entirely into the learn by reading system. Don't worry that it doesn't tell you what level this is unlocked at. I have no idea why that is, but they are unlocked at the exact same stage as these, which is level 8, so don't worry about it too much. Yeah, I think that is everything this mod adds as of me starting this mod 7 days ago. So here's 7 days to mod, everybody. This is what I made in 7 days, which I think is pretty good, going from basically nothing to having a mod with all these items and stuff in it. I have to give some special thanks to the Guppy unofficial 7 Days to Die modding Discord server, as well as specifically to Little Red Sonia, Chessa, Lador, Guppy himself, of course, and Finn or FNS, as well as M14, one of the creators of the Escape from Tarkov overhaul mod, for giving me various technical assistance and advice when making this mod. I could not have done it anywhere near as quickly without their help. And of course, I don't even know if he's still around, if he's still doing YouTube, but I have to give a massive thanks to Max Fox Gaming for his Alpha 21 XML modding tutorial. It's still very, very useful to this day, and it helped me out a lot when learning how to do XPath and learning all the silly little ways that you have to mod 7 Days to Die. I don't know if he's still around, but if he is, thank you for your series. It's still very, very helpful, and you helped me make this mod very, very quickly when it could have taken a lot longer. By the time this video goes up, hopefully the mod should be fully uploaded onto the website, and you guys should be able to download it from the link in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing what you guys say about the mod, and I will see you in the next one.